going to reshape him into something that's much more acceptable. And we see a lot of that in America with some of our big churches, prosperity gospel churches and things like that, where they're reshaping Jesus into what they want him to be. And he begins to look like a white middle-class American rather than who he really was. And Galusha didn't want to do that. He in his day, he faced that same challenge that every pastor does face. And he decided, no, he had to speak the truth. He had to take a stand. And I think this book would be helpful for almost any pastor. That's not always going to be the answer. Sometimes you do have to say, well, I'll bide my time and stay here a little bit longer and see if we can address this at another time. But for him, the Civil War was raging. There was battles all around, and he felt like he had no choice but to speak the truth to his congregation and to his city. It was a huge change. And soon after he did that, in the next year and a half, the Episcopalian, the Methodist, Presbyterians, some of the other pastors began to join him. Not all, because there were Confederate supporters among the pastors as well. But eventually, the Union pastors of St. Louis stood and took the stand. But he was the first, and his was the congregation that split wide open over the issue.
And again, we go to the reenacting a slave owner from Mississippi, and the message again is about his stance on slavery. And we've already touched on this, but I just thought this was a nice little chapter to put in there just to reaffirm his stance on slavery, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I think this couple, he was a banker, and they invited Galusha and his wife over for dinner soon after they arrived, and they were bragging about their two slaves. Their names were Wash and Mammy, very typical slave names. And they were bragging about how loyal they were to their family, to their two little girls. They would never betray them or run away. And as soon as the war was declared between the North and the South, Wash, the man, was the first slave in St. Louis to run away from his slave owner. And that's the part about this chapter. And finally, they actually locked the slaves in their house. The slaves did stay in the house, but they locked the house at night with a key that they couldn't get out. And Mammy actually put her sheets and things in a long rope and jumped out the window with that, and she ran away too. So they were at the beginning of the chapter bragging to their pastor, their new young pastor, and his wife about how loyal their slaves were and how much a part of their family they were and all that kind of thing. And not too long after, that both slaves ran away, because obviously it was an inhumane situation and the couple couldn't even recognize that.
Yes, it's a chapter with a tale of two woes. That's what I thought when I read that chapter. Stephen, when I look at the lives of both Galusha and yourself, I can see certain, similarities. You were both pastors of the same church, organization, and that was in St. Louis, because that's where you both, practiced your ministry. You both write and wrote books. Galusha had to deal with racial discrimination, social injustice, civil disorder, conflict back in the 1850s and 60s. And you're, as a modern pastor, still heavily involved in the life of your church, still having to deal with racial inequalities, divisions within the communities you serve. You both went to the same seminaries. Do you see yourself, Stephen, as a modern day Galusha, having to address time-old issues that still exist today as they did in the 1860s, albeit in a different format? Black Lives Matter today, racial tension, rich and poor issues still there. Has America moved on?
Wow, what a question.
That's why I asked it.
In some ways, yes, and in many ways, no. You're right that the racial inequality is still very, very much a part of our culture as a nation. Racism is systemic in America, and it's an ongoing challenge, and we're going through it now with more conservative voices wanting to ride out slavery so we don't teach our children because it would make them uncomfortable to know that we had slavery in our country, and to ride out advocacy for African Americans, that sort of thing, so it makes the white children feel better. So we're still dealing with it in very real ways. I don't want to put myself right on the level with Galusha, but I do think that the issues that he faced, you're absolutely right. I can see right through the issues that I have faced in my life, the challenges I have faced with congregations, the social issues that I've had to address, exactly the same as his, not quite as dramatic with the Civil War going on around me, but there is a partisan war going on in the United States today. It's even more pronounced perhaps now than at any time in my 50 years as a pastor, and it does take courage to address that. You try not to be partisan and to keep partisan politics out of the pulpit, but you still need to address the issues of justice and equality for women, for all minorities, and those are still issues that have to be addressed. And you can turn the other way and avoid them, and keep so-called peace, although I don't know how much peace that really keeps, or you can address them and take the lumps. And I find Galusha to be a very significant model for me, even a hero that I can follow. And I wrote the book because I didn't write it just for pastors, because I think the same is true for lay people. Everybody faces injustice and wrong in their lives. And the question is, do you just go along, or do you stand up for the truth? And for pastors, it has very real consequences, but in the jobs that lay people have, when someone's not treated right because it's a woman or it's a Black person or it's an Asian or whatever, you're still faced with the same choice. Are you going to stand up and speak the truth, or are you going to kind of duck down and go along? And I think reading Galusha and his courage during the Civil War can be very helpful for us today, for people of truth and people of faith to know what to do. And I don't think it offers a easy prescription. Oh, you should always do such and so. I don't think it does that. But in fact, he was only there a couple of years, had just started with his congregation, and felt like he had to take a stand. And we see the consequences of that.
And what's next for Stephen D. Jones, both personally and literary wise?
Well, I just left my little 7-month granddaughter at home this morning. We're taking care of her today. So that helping raise our 2 granddaughters is a key part of, I didn't realize how important that would be, but you are so right. When you have your own kids, you never get a break from it. So we are the break for our daughter and her partner, so that we can give them a little time off and we get some time with their granddaughter. So that's certainly important. And I'm co-leading a congregation in Kansas City that has been hurt and touched by the COVID pandemic, as every congregation has. I suspect worldwide, but I know it most in the United States. Many of our people have still not come back. Everyone has gone on to streaming live their services. So it's awfully easy to sit in your jammies at home with a cup of coffee, and you don't have to dress up or anything, and just sit and watch. Yeah. And that's good. I'm not against that, but it does change the nature of organizations that rely on face-to-face sense of
changes the dynamics.
It does. So we're dealing with that and all of the challenges that came out of that, and some possibilities that have come out of that. So I've had 50 years of experience as a pastor, and I have never been through anything like this before. This is a whole new thing. So I'm got to be on my toes as much as any other younger pastor, just learning and trying to figure out and navigate these difficult waters, and to help my church come out on the other side stronger and better prepared to serve in the future. That's a tall order, and that's what we're involved with.
Any books in the pipeline?
I don't have any right now. I did just write another book called Learning Jesus. It was published a year later than Galusha, and so I don't. Right now, I'm kind of in a break, but we'll see.
I like that, in a break. Where can people get your book from?
Easiest way is Amazon. It's listed on Amazon, and it's very easy to order. You just go and type in the title or my name or whatever, it'll pop up. 2 or 3 of my other books will pop up too, and that's the easiest way. You can get it from the publisher, Trafford, but probably it's easiest to get it from Amazon.
So this is a book not only for pastors; it's a book for everybody to read and get an insight into the fascinating life of a significant person, but not largely known, Reverend Galusha Anderson. Stephen Jones, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about yourself and your book. Stephen D. Jones, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Oh, it's been an absolute delight. I'm JT Crowley. Thanks for listening, watching, wherever you are in the world. So until next time, stay safe.